Today we're going to start with the background. Pour some Caribbean, Bimini Blue, and Warm Buff onto your palette. As you can see, the two blues are pretty similar, but one is slightly grayer than the other. Dip a 1 to 2 inch flat brush into both blue shades and begin covering your entire canvas using a side-to-side motion. Once the canvas has been completely covered, dip the same brush into some Warm Buff and begin adding streaks of it here and there using that same side-to-side motion. And then, just for the heck of it, grab a bit of titanium white and add a few streaks of that as well. Now it's time to paint our first pumpkin. This pumpkin is going to be tall, so starting about a third of the way down from the top of our canvas, paint a backward C, or the closing end of a pair of parentheses, using your 1/2 inch angled brush loaded with titanium white. Then, slide on over to the left and paint a right-facing C, or the starting end of a pair of parentheses. Paint on another set of C's, about 1 inch inside of those. And then one last pair near the center. Go back and round out the outside edges of your pumpkin with titanium white. And if you screw up like I did, just go over it with a bit of your background blue color. While the white is still wet, I want you to grab a 1/4 inch angled brush and load it with the chestnut color. This is our darkest shade of brown. And then trace over the center of each white line. At this point, our pumpkin looks pretty horrible and sad, but just wait until we start blending the colors together. While the chestnut brown is still wet, go back to your 1/2 inch angled brush and begin filling in the gaps with titanium white, letting your brush grab some of that chestnut on the downward strokes. Do you see how blending the two colors is creating a natural shading to your pumpkin? I've decided I want my light to come from the right side of the pumpkin, which means the left side of the pumpkin will be in the shadows. So let's begin adding some Warm Buff and light mocha to the left side only. Next, I want you to take some of that chestnut and add 3 humps to the top of your pumpkin. This is going to show the back side of the pumpkin. Then I want you to just lighten them up with some of that light mocha and classic caramel. Add some classic caramel to the lower left side of your pumpkin, and then paint in your highlights on the upper right side using titanium white. Go back and darken your pumpkin's creases with some more of that chestnut brown and then blend the colors together. Now I want you to stand back and take a look at your first pumpkin. Notice that it has this very pretty pearl color to it. And the warm buff and titanium white that we added to the background just helps to pull it all together. Are you ready to paint your second pumpkin? Alright, let's do it. For this pumpkin, we'll be using our 1/2-inch angled brush loaded with Harvest Orange. Now starting about midway down from our first pumpkin, paint on a fat backward C. This pumpkin is going to be short and fat. Now the C should overlap our first pumpkin by about 1 inch or so. Slide on over to the left and paint on another fat C. This one should be facing forward. Then just repeat the process with 2 more pairs of C's, just inside of those. Next, I want you to grab your 1/4-inch angled brush and load it with some antique copper and then trace over the center of those lines, just like we did with the chestnut on the white pumpkin. Switch back to the 1/2-inch brush, load it with some more of that Harvest Orange, and begin filling in the gaps, pulling that copper in with each stroke. Next, dip into your antique gold and begin painting over the orange layers, concentrating on the right side, since that's where we've decided our light is coming from. Paint on your pumpkin's 3 back humps using antique copper, and then go over those humps with a little bit of antique gold. Now it's time to add our highlight. Dip your brush into some of that Inca gold, this is the lightest shade, and begin adding that to your pumpkin. Again, concentrating on the right side where the light is coming from. Finally, go back and touch up your shadowed areas using antique copper, and then blend the colors in. Looks like we're ready to add stems to our pumpkins. So let's start with our white pumpkin. Load a number 4 flat brush with a blend of antique copper and chestnut, and then begin painting on a short stem. Drag some of the stem down through each crease of the pumpkin. It's going to look very much like a tree stump with roots. Now let's extend that stump upwards and to the right, and then add a few loops trailing off from the vine. To add highlights, just dip your brush into some titanium white and draw a bunch of short lines in the root area and along the stem. Then, blend those lines into the copper chestnut color until it looks more natural. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing on our second pumpkin. So again, dip your number 4 flat into some copper and chestnut, and then paint on your stump and roots. This time we want to extend the end to the left, and then add our swirls and loops to the vine. Don't forget to add your highlights. Paint on a bunch of short white lines and then blend them in. Here's what it should look like when you're done. At this point, you can just add on your thankful stencil and be done with the painting. But if you want to add another layer to pull it all together like I did, Then grab your 1-inch mop blender and follow these directions. Dip that dry mop brush into your copper and your 2 golds, and then begin lightly dabbing it into each corner. This is going to create sort of a dreamy vignette look to the painting. Pull some of that color into the sides and top and bottom of your painting, and then begin softening it up just using a quick back and forth swishing motion. Here's a shot of the painting halfway finished, so you can decide if you want to add this vignette or skip this step. It's totally up to you. If you do decide you want to add it, just repeat the process on the opposite side. Now it's time for our very last step. First, you'll need to decide where you want to place your thankful stencil. It helps to cut away the excess paper so you can see exactly how much room is around the wording. Once you've found the perfect spot, tape it in place. Then, take a sheet of carbon or graphite paper. You can find this at your local office supply store or by clicking the affiliate link below. Cut your piece of carbon paper in half long ways, and then tape it in place beneath your stencil, making sure that the shiny side is face down against your canvas. Then, take a basic ballpoint pen and trace over all the lettering in your stencil. Once you're done, carefully remove the stencil and the wording should have transferred through like this. Dip a number 4 flat brush into some antique copper and fill in the word. It's as simple as coloring inside the lines. When you're done, you should have this shimmery, shiny, thankful. Now step back and take a look at what you've painted. I want to show you the painting in different lights so you can see how pretty those metallic colors turned out. Here's a look at it in shadow. And then watch what happens when I turn the light on. Pretty, right?